The National Marriage Project exists to sponsor top-flight research on marriage and family life, and to help students, faculty, alumni, and friends of the university think deeply about the nature and the importance of love, marriage, and family life in contemporary America. So it's in that spirit that I'd like to welcome you to our spring conference being sponsored by the National Marriage Project and the Wheatley Institute, called In Pursuit: What Do Marriage and Motherhood Have Today with the Happiness of Women? This conference arises from a poll that I ran across last year from my colleague Dan Cox. And her survey found that a majority of single women today believe that single women are happier than married women. This poll suggests that in the minds and hearts of at least some women in our culture today, the path to a meaningful and happy life runs away from family and not towards it. And this poll is emblematic of what I call the marriage paradox, which is that marriage's public reputation has eroded in recent years, even as its emotional and material value seems to be as great as ever.
But we face a paradox, as Brad described, where marriage seems to be in retreat in some corners of U.S. society, but it also seems quite durable as a way of organizing society. And what's remarkable in the past cultural change over the past 80 years is that it has not changed. Marriage is still pretty fundamental to U.S. Society and how we organize our lives.
All institutions in American life are less esteemed than they were a generation ago. Fewer people identify as being religiously committed. Many people do. This is still an overwhelmingly religious country, but many fewer people identify as being religiously committed. The Congress, all of our major institutions are less esteemed in this generation than they were a generation ago. So it shouldn't surprise us that marriage is another institution to which people have less allegiance than they used to, okay? People used to be born into a religiously committed environment, and they would generally stay to that religious group until they died. Now people move around, they try different things, they try different religious experiences, and I think religious commitment is very much correlated with marriage, so it shouldn't surprise us that when these other institutions have less of our allegiance, that marriage does also.
I mean, every study says, yes, parents are tired. Yes, in the first couple of years of having children, it is very hard. But as we saw today, every study also says that with those sacrifices comes deep meaning. I think the conversation then becomes like what provides that happiness, which I look at friends who have children, who have chosen not to have children, and the common denominator in their happiness, number one, is very strong relationships, so a strong romantic relationship, strong platonic relationships that we were talking about, you know, the importance of physical touch in your life, but also having purpose. Having a deep drive, something that you care about, something that you are willing to sacrifice for, which from others, I look at my mother, she sacrificed a million different things for me and my brothers, and she fought tooth and nail to provide us the best life, and that brought her so much joy. And, you know, I have aunts and uncles who chose not to have kids who live incredible, happy lives because they're so purpose-driven and they sacrifice for those purposes.
But also, I mean, this is, I think, kind of inevitable in terms of people's perception of parenthood, is that its joys are just more intimate and less visible than the things about it that suck. I don't think there's any changing that, you know, you see parents kind of in the restaurant looking harried, their kids crying, they have to leave early. You see the bad parts and you just don't see the good parts. And that's kind of inherent to the way it works.
Sure. And I've always thought that trying to ferret out what happiness means in data is difficult, because I would rate myself as very happy, but if you called me on the phone at 5 o'clock at my house with 3 children under 5 and asked me how happy I was at that given moment, I mean, it's a toss-up. I don't know what it is.
And unfortunately, I just think our society does not value caretaking overall, and the rubber is going to hit the road, because while you could choose to be a parent, you do not choose to be a child. And as this country ages and that more people need care, then the rubber's going to hit the road, and so people are going to understand that caretaking is of value, and it needs to be taken care of as a society. And so I just think this is really where it's both and. I mean, it's both and. It's the kind of the self-actualization movement that emphasizes, look, where does parenting? Parenting is all joy and no fun. I mean, who are we kidding? It's all joy. It's like you give up something in the short run for the larger purpose and the mission and the larger sort of joy and those moments and those bursts of ecstasy. But it requires tremendous sacrifice in the short run. That's just facts.
The joys of having children are untold, and the stresses of having them initially will be forgotten.
I think having a purpose, I think one of the reasons that people in the military, like you were mentioning, the military is very social, but it's a high social environment, but it's also people have a purpose. You don't have to join the military. Some people feel that they have to, but they don't really have to. They do it because they have a purpose. And I think that, and this goes for all of us, we all need to figure out why we're here. Why are you here? And if you figure out what your purpose is, it will lead you to other people who also have a purpose. And I think that will lead you to people who understand what it is to work in service of a purpose. And it doesn't have to be my purpose, but it does have to be something that is of value and that has more meaning than the next pair of sneakers.
And so I think then when you get into adulthood, I think that there's a lot of people, I look around at our generation, who don't want to accept responsibility in any part of their life, which comes with, in order to sacrifice, you need to take responsibility, and you have to, I think that those go hand in hand. So I think that's also a big part of it, is that we're looking at, as you said, those material things and that instant gratification, and that's our primary focus instead of doing something that's greater than you, which is also obviously with purpose.